I don't know that we realized it when we started, but it turned out that the point of this project was to build the Cayman GT3 that Porsche was afraid to do. The GT4 RS is easily one of the best driver's cars on sale today. We've had probably half a dozen come through the shop in the last year for service and performance upgrades. We absolutely love them. But the car isn't perfect. It's got a couple of issues. The first is performance. It really seems like Porsche kind of held back on development of the car and didn't reach its full potential. And second, the 4RS is rumored to have an Achilles heel that can be dangerous if you're driving the car at its limit. So when the owner of a paint-to-sample olive green 4RS said that he wanted the ultimate mountain car capable of outrunning the fastest 911s, we knew that it would be a challenge. The problem is this: the 982 Cayman Boxster platform looks great on paper. Compared to the 911, it's smaller, it's lighter, and it's mid-engine, so it has better weight distribution. And the special sauce that sets the 4RS apart from all the lesser Caymans is the motor. It's got the 500 horsepower flat six from the GT3 that redlines at 9,000 RPM. Even though the recipe seems perfect, the car still lags far behind the top 911 in terms of outright performance. On the one hand, the RS badge means ultimate performance in the Porsche world, but on the other hand, the marketing department wants this car to slot in at a certain price point that is well below the GT3, and of course they don't want it to outperform its big brother. The marketing department might be okay with that, but this car's owner is not. We thought that if we could close that performance gap, we might have a GT3 killer on our hands. To make that happen, we need more power, more grip, and a lot more downforce. There's also some talk about this car's suspension having a dangerous design flaw, so that's something that we needed to address. Step one was a shakedown test at Atlanta Motorsports Park, which isn't far from our shop in Roswell. We wanted to see how the car performed on track in stock form. We also wanted to replicate the bump steer issue people talk about. We are a dealer for Dundon Motorsports. They have a big catalog of parts for these cars, and I talked to Jamie, their co-founder, to find out more about this problem. He described it as a bad case of bump steer that catches out a lot of drivers. It usually goes something like this. You're trail braking into a turn at high speed and your inside rear tire touches the curb. As the suspension articulates over that bump, the rear inside wheel experiences an extreme toe angle change, which effectively steers the car into a spin if you're not able to catch it. We were hoping to experience it for ourselves at AMP, but we hit a little snag. We had previously installed a full Soul Performance exhaust on the car. They showed in dyno testing that their exhaust system gives a good bump in horsepower over stock, especially in the mid-range where there's a significant dip. Unfortunately, Atlanta Motorsports Park has a strict noise limit, and redlining the car with the Soul exhaust at full throttle led to a black flag.
Uh-oh, a little loud?
They told us their noise limit is 101 decibels. Our car was measured at 110 decibels, which meant that we could only really drive the car at maybe 8/10 and get it up to maybe 6,000 RPM to avoid getting kicked out. The grip level on the track wasn't great. They had just hosted a drifting event there, but the low grip did sort of highlight that the car is prone to understeer. As far as the bump steer issue goes, our pro driver Jake and I took turns intentionally trying to upset the car, but we couldn't get it to misbehave. But based on our experience, Jake and I both fell in love with the car, which only made us more excited to see what the upgrades would do. The first step was to install the full aero kit offered by Dundon Motorsports. From the factory, the car makes about 200 pounds of downforce at 125 miles an hour, compared to the GT3 RS, which makes 900 pounds. Dundon's Valkyrie kit, which retails for about $20,000, includes a big rear wing and a massive front splitter. It's all in carbon fiber, including dive planes for the front bumper and swan neck risers for the rear wing. Dundon says their kit makes 885 pounds of downforce at 120 miles an hour and 1,500 pounds at 160. That's more than 4 times what the stock car is doing, and it's right in line with the GT3 RS. All of that downforce equals more grip, especially in high-speed corners and long sweeping curves. The functional aspect is the point, but I was struck by how much it sets off the car visually. If you put an RS badge and a GT3 motor into a Cayman, is it still a GT4? I don't know that we realized it when we started, but it turned out that the point of this project was to build the Cayman GT3 that Porsche was afraid to. The downforce helps shove the car into the road, but now the coilovers need to be ready to cope with all that energy. So next, we installed Dundon's MCS 3-way coilover package. Dundon's approach to the bump steer problem isn't to correct the fundamental suspension geometry. That would basically require a redesign of the platform. Their solution is to try to limit how much the suspension travels, and that automatically reduces the amount of toe change. They accomplish that with stronger dampers, not with stiffer springs. Dundon actually goes with a softer spring in the rear, but with stiffer rebound to control movement. The stars of the show are the MCS dampers, which feature remote reservoirs and special valving. With the MCS dampers and the remote reservoirs, you've got more fluid capacity, and you've also got more range for that fluid to travel through the valves. That allows the system to absorb much bigger impacts and still exhibit less travel. And that means better stability over bumps. The whole setup sells for a little over $13,000. The net result is better damping and performance driving, and as a bonus, you get better ride quality on the street. A big part of getting the most performance out of the car is dialing in the alignment. We were on a tight deadline because we had an opportunity to take the car to Road Atlanta and test it back-to-back with a stock 4RS. Despite this being an RS car, it's limited to -2.5 degrees of camber in the front, which is pretty tame if you're planning to take the car to track days. Depending on how extreme you want to go with your alignment, Dundon offers various versions. The Pro setup includes everything and costs nearly $9,000. Since this is going to be much more of a mountain car than a track day car, we opted to go for a very conservative setup. We were at the shop late getting it done, but in the morning the car was ready for its maiden voyage at Road Atlanta. Road Atlanta is another road course that's not far from us, and it's what a lot of the locals refer to as a big boy track. I've got quite a bit of amateur experience here with track days and endurance racing, but we also brought our pro driver, Jake Bailey, who has done wheel-to-wheel racing in a Cayman club sport. One of the things we both noticed about the stock car was that you could distinctly feel the bump steer while braking into 10A. It makes the rear end of the car feel unsettled, which isn't necessarily a problem assuming you're braking in a straight line, but it does not build confidence. That said, both Jake and I actually really enjoyed the stock car on that course. That feeling in the rear end makes the car feel lively, which isn't to say that the bump steer problem isn't real, but it seems like maybe something that would be more likely to catch you out on a mountain drive on an unfamiliar road, as opposed to this very controlled, repeatable environment of a racetrack. In the morning, Jake ran a 1:33.9, which is a very respectable lap time, especially considering that it was July in the south. We went out in the modified car next, and despite the track conditions getting much worse as the heat went up, you could immediately feel the improvement. Braking into 10A, it felt completely planted. There was no sign of that rear end wiggle that the stock car has. If you've ever been to Road Atlanta in the summertime, you know that in the morning it's decent, and by the afternoon it's terrible when it gets hot. It's incredibly greasy. We ran the stock car in the morning and the modified car in the afternoon, and we were still faster, both Jake and I, in the modified car. It wasn't by enough margin to be like, wow, look at this lap time difference, but when you consider the conditions, it was significant. As he was trying to get a clean lap, Jake did manage to hunt down a 992 GT3 RS. Now I have to assume that car was not being driven by a professional driver. That said, I still chalk that up as a win for the underdog. Our takeaway from the track day is that our car was incredibly fast and confidence-inspiring when pushed hard, which meant it was ready to prove itself in the mountains. The Rennsport Dragon Rally happens a few times a year, and it is based at the Fontana Village Resort in North Carolina. It's a Porsche-only event that draws 200 cars from all over the country. It spans 3 days and almost 600 miles of pre-planned routes. The Tail of the Dragon is the famous one that draws the tourists, but the locals know that it is far from the best road in the area. I'm probably biased because I was invited to drive our green 4RS for the entire rally, but if there was a Best in Show award, I think our car would have taken the prize. From a sensory standpoint, it has everything. Rare paint to sample color, outrageous bodywork, insane exhaust. On these roads, with the right driver, I doubt that anything could keep up. But more importantly, that driver is going to be having the time of their life. That's one thing I really love about this generation of Cayman. The platform goes all the way back to the 981 from 2013, so it's a little bit old school. It's still a little bit analog. You can fault Porsche for holding back and not taking this car to its full potential, but you also don't want a sports car to be too perfect because rough edges are what give it personality. On the morning of the last day, when I was driving home from the rally, my route took me over Blood Mountain in Georgia, and that's where I got the very distinct feeling that I was driving the fastest car on the mountain. It consumes straightaways, long sweepers, tight curves with poise and balance. The brakes are inexhaustible. There is grip for days. All of that inspires so much confidence. I'm afraid of overusing that word, but what could be better than driving fast on a beautiful mountain road at the peak of the fall season and feeling absolutely no fear? But despite all of that confidence, the car never gets boring. The responsiveness, the huge wing in your rearview mirror, the exhaust, it feels like a wild animal. We know that Porsche held back when they developed the 4RS. We unleashed it.